Hello there everybody and welcome to my farming guide for Songs of Syx. In this video I'm going to cover all the things that you might want to know about farming. We're going to talk about worker amounts, farm sizes, shapes, the fertility, and all the things in between. There is a lot to talk about, so let's better get started right away with the basics. So for farming in Songs of Syx, we need first the crop that we want to farm, then we build a farm out of that very crop, and then we multiply that stuff. As far, that's pretty simple. So the downside of farming generally is that it is a cyclical production, it's not a daily production, and the people that you put into that business are bound there. They're going to be bound to that farm because you don't want to micromanage their on and off employment, because technically you might be able to unemploy them during winter, but practically you don't want that because they're constantly doing something useful out there. So that brings us to the point that we want to optimize our production, and we need to know where we can build our farms ideally. Fertility plays here the major role. You have 2 meters, fertility base and fertility. This is the fertility after modifiers of various sorts. We're going to talk about that in a hot minute too. And there's the fertility base. That's the one that you need when you're looking for a spot to farm. So the darker the grids, the less fertility there is to be found. You get an overview about the region's fertility in general when you're setting up your map, your city on the map, and basically it's very simple. The more bright the blue, the better. We can set up farms wherever we want, but the yields will go down dramatically once the fertility plunges below 60%. Basically, if it's anything below 60%, I'd strongly recommend going for irrigation. Irrigation works very simple. You build a water pump which has to be sitting next to a water supply, and then you can build a canal alongside of the field, and I'll show you the impact. This is the base fertility, and this is the fertility after the irrigation. In any scenario, irrigation pumps up the power of your farming venture massively, and it's always worth it, even in a very fertile environment. If you have the workforce to put water over canals into the vicinity of the fields, it's almost always a benefit, more or less. That's including a lot of workforce, and that is how fertility works. It's basically just a direct multiplier to your yield at the end of the year, and the higher the fertility, the more you get out of that. If your fertility drops substantially below 50 to 40%, I would even not recommend to farm there at all, because you will invest a lot of workers for almost nothing. You'd be most of the time better off just importing the stuff in question and doing something else with your workers, because at some point you have to consider that every worker you put onto the fields could be doing something else. Okay, let's move over to the question of farming, farm sizes and shapes. All farms behave the same except for the mushroom farm. The mushroom farm needs a building around it, a roof over it. That's the primary thing. But apart from that, it behaves exactly the same as all other farms. Fertility matters. Now, when you are selecting a farm, the game immediately goes over to the fertility overlay, and your farms can be, show you, can have pretty much a maximum size of this. Either in so the game is a little bit weird on that end. So you can, I think this illustrates it quite well. So you can go either into a more rectangular shape or into a more square shape. The worker count fluctuates between 21 workers on a square shape to 18 to 17 workers on a rectangular shape. In general, I personally think the best shape for your farm looks a little bit like this. Pretty much rectangular, and then we go for as long down down the road as we can, just like this. And this houses only 14 farmers. But the thing is, if we look how fertility via what's the word, irrigation works, we see that The center area here is not influenced by the water. So basically, the field with this narrow pattern, the fertility gain from the canals can seep into the center. If you make it too wide, the center pieces will not be influenced by the fertility increase. That's pretty much it. It's a fickle thing to perfect this process. I don't want to give you here a min-maxed build like this on that grid is perfect, because I don't believe in cookie cutter solutions. That's just making cities boring and bland. But the general idea is you want to have the maximum impact of the fertilization of the irrigation on your fields. And it's much better to have 2 fields with 10 workers if they get the maximum bonus, rather to have 1 field with 20 workers. It really matters a lot. And therefore, the ideal shape for farms looks pretty much like that. And when you are going to nudge it around, personally, I would always suggest you to go for an even number like that. So the 14 farmers working there will have the maximum yield there. I'll leave it up to you how far you want to go. If you want to have the exact perfect border. I haven't measured how far irrigation actually goes in that regard. Feel free to enlighten me, dear comment section. For me, it is important that I give you the tools, you see. The optimization, that's where the game happens, and that's the fun. So that's how we go with farm sizes and shapes. Now, our farming result is being influenced by a ton of different factors. When you mouse over your production value, you see that fertility is only one of many, many things that influence it. I want to go first up over technology. So technology-wise, you can do a lot. In the agriculture technology tab, you can increase your output on the farms massively. And as a rule of thumb, as soon as you have around 50 to 100 farmers working out on the fields, you should definitely consider working with tech before you build new farms, because eventually these percentile modifiers will kick in so strong that you only have to invest a relatively low amount of tech points to get the results, like almost another farm out of for free, just for tech's sake. That is a really, really powerful thing that you can do. And the other thing that you can do to increase your productivity always is using tools. You see, every farm type can be powered up with tools. Tools are basically a steroid for all kinds of different workshops. When you click the hammer icon up here, you can also configure which industry is supposed to get how many tools, and you can pretty much configure that more precisely, and you have an easy access to all the different industries there. The more tools you invest, the more multiplier you get. The problem is, you see here, there's a daily degradation of tools, and therefore you might get up to 50% more yield, but you have to invest constantly into tools to retain that yield. That is something, if you start with it, I highly recommend that you only do it when you know that you can upkeep, that you can uphold the constant investment of tool, because otherwise you might suffer a sudden fluctuation downwards in terms of income. That being said, there is also another component influencing the outcome of your farms, and that is which race is doing the farming. As you see here, there are all these different colored hammer icons. The Cretonians are the only race that has dark green hammers. That means they are not only good at it, they also love doing it. They are the best farmers in the game, directly followed by the humans and the Tilapi. All the other races in the game don't excel too much at farming, and that has then again an impact on their farming success. You can check out the different exact ratios when you right click your races here and go into the question mark thingy there and scroll all the way down there. In the employment screen, we can now see, let's go for somebody who hates farming as a good comparison. The Garthimi, they are exceedingly bad. You see there is a skill modifier attached to it, and here you get some numbers. The Garthimi will have a 50% lower yield when doing farming, and the humans, on the other hand, will even receive a 20% bonus when farming. The Cretonians even 140. So it really matters who does the job. Therefore, you should always check on out that you make sure that the people that are supposed to do the job get the job. To do so, you go here into the occupation menu and work priorities. You can here configure work priorities for certain species. And the standard priority system is pretty much already working out pretty excellent. As you can see here, the standard default mask has humans on a pretty high priority on the entire farming, but Cretonians even on a higher priority, so they will take the jobs first. But I highly recommend you to double check on these and increase or decrease these priorities to your own liking. At least check them out so you know that the system exists if you didn't already. So that's pretty much the gist of it. You want to have farms that are sitting on good fertile soil, you want to irrigate them, and you want to have them shaped in a way that they get the most out of the surrounding canal irrigation. That's pretty much the gist of it. It is very, very lucrative to have at least one race in your city that is good at farming, because farming is a very, very powerful thing. Last but not least, I wanted to add in a couple of little tricks and tips and tricks that you can go for. First of all, you can forage pretty much everything and build a farm out of it. As you see there, the stuff is littered all over the place, and if you go for a forage job, your people will pick the stuff when the season is right, and you can kickstart a little bit of an own business of the by yourself there. This is excellent for kickstarting farms in the early game, but as a matter of fact, it's pretty much pretty good in all stages of the game if you just don't want to import. The next thing, keep stockpiles. Keep big stockpiles of your food crops, especially grain. Droughts happen in this game. These events lower the output of your farms dramatically, and that this can be really, really bad. If you're working with orchards, I kind of skimmed them here only. They basically work the same as farms. They just have a higher yield, and they require a few years before they crank out fruit. Orchards can even die completely when an event hits them. I really hope that this event might be notched down and only a couple of trees sometimes die, but it's really like that. Groves, fruit orchards, sometimes if there is an infestation there, the entire orchard has to go. That means sudden drops in productivity can and will happen. Therefore, large stockpiles save you from dying because of that. The other thing is it pays off that to just bring up some crops as cash crop. My personal recommendation here goes to the herbs. They are a pain to craft. They are really, you have a very low yield, but before you have the ration maker going, you can easily set up something like 10 farmers and sell that stuff for sweet, sweet denarii all day long. Other way around, you can also just start to plant opiates if you are in the right biome. I don't know if that has been removed in V66, but you need to unlock opiate farming to actually get started with it. It's quite costly, but it yields a crop that you can just export for tons of denarii, because the hospitals are hardly using the amount of the stuff that you're producing yourself. You can also just start farming veg and go for your own species in your town, and here forbid it for them, because if they don't like it, they don't mind if they can't eat it, and start selling all of it. Farming can be a tremendous source of income. That's all I want to point out here. And last but not least, one really, really smart trick that I loved was somebody in the comment section helped me out with a problem that after you've built a farm, you can't see anymore for how many workers it's tailored. I have no clue now how many workers there are, and sometimes I like to go for like 10 of 21 workers at the beginning because I just don't have them all, but I wanted to build the farm in advance. So here goes the little trick. Somebody might have already guessed it. So you go here and call it 21 workers or 21W. And now you will know henceforth how many workers to put there. It's so simple that I was shocked that I didn't come up with it myself. so I meant to share, because that's really one of the things that I struggle with farming a lot. Maybe the UI will one day provide, but until this day is coming on up, this is what you can do. So that's all I have to say about farming. I hope it helped you out to understand what you're doing, or realizing that you're already doing everything correctly. Maybe there was something between that helps you out. I very sincerely hope so. That all being said, drop me in the comment section all the things that I might have missed out, because knowing how freaking darn deep this game is, I surely have missed out a couple of smart things to say. Leave me a thumbs up, consider subscribing, check out the description box. You will find cool playlist links there, because I have struck up a new tutorial playlist link there, and there's a Let's Play tutorial thing there. So check them out. They're all quite educational, I hope, or so they say. There's also my Discord, there's my Twitch, and there's also a couple of links to support Icon Gaming directly, and I'd be more than happy if you did so. There's PayPal, Patreon, or Buy Me a Coffee, or the channel membership thingy, allowing you to preview all the videos that are scheduled for release already. I tend to pre-upload a lot of things, so you can't check them out before they get released, but no content is being paywalled on my end. It's all just time-gated, and people supporting can have an early dib on that. So, that all being said, a big thanks to all the supporters of Icon Gaming. I sincerely appreciate, and a big thanks to you as well watching this video until the very end. Appreciate, and I hope we're going to be on the next one as well. Bye bye.